Hi, welcome to the Ronin Author. My name is Ryan McGinnis. I'm your host. I am among other things, a web designer, the owner of a t-shirt shop, and also a self-published author. I started my author journey back in 2020 when my first short story, Sketch, was published on Mandatory Midnight. From there, I've went on to put out 5 books on Amazon, all in the Xavier Green Thriller series. So you can look those up. But I came upon this concept. I was thinking about the concept of a Ronin. And if you don't know what a Ronin is, back in feudal Japan in the time of shoguns and samurai and ninjas, but we won't talk about ninjas. Don't talk about ninjas, But in the time in feudal Japan, there were Ronin. Ronin were masterless samurai. You see, the samurai, the way it worked back then is you had a shogun, and then you had samurai who were all employed by that shogun. Well, a Ronin was someone who had no master. He was basically a mercenary. He was whoever paid him. He walked his own path. He didn't belong to any shogun or any feudal lord, so he walked his own path. And I got to thinking about that. And I was like, being into the DIY lifestyle, which for those of you who don't know, that's do it yourself, is kind of like being a Ronin. I've been an indie musician, which is a musician who didn't have a record label, where you put your own stuff out, or back in the day, you started your own record label. And I've also, went into business for myself. In a lot of ways, I chose the Ronin path back in 2009, when I got laid off, and instead of going back to work and trying to find a job somewhere else, I just started my own company and started doing web design, and I've been doing it ever since then. So I guess you could say I walked that Ronin path, and which is to walk alone and to have no master and to just do stuff, for yourself, and to do stuff, to help others, and and to make money and to make a living. And so, I kind of thought about that's kind of how being a self-published author is, and loving feudal Japan and all that stuff. I decided to do this podcast, The Ronin Author, where we can kind of walk together, and we can, walk this path together, maybe learn together, because we're all Ronin. We're all walking that path. You're a Ronin too. If you're a self-published author, if you're out there trying to do your thing, trying to make it work, trying to hustle, then you're a Ronin author too. So I wanted to do this podcast for all of us, to kind of grow and to learn and to kind of go on this journey together. But we have one rule. I have one rule. I decided, back in the time of Ronins, and you might have seen the shirts. There's been a lot of shirts. You put like a samurai on the shirt and it says, "No gods, no masters." I actually saw that shirt years ago when I lived in Wichita, Kansas, and I bought it, and because it was just killer. It had this like samurai on it with the sun behind him, and it said "No gods, no masters." But the shirt was the shirt was like really crappy material. It was really heavy, and so I ended up never wearing it, which is a pity. Because it was a cool shirt. Maybe I'll make one myself. Who knows? But we've got one rule. The Ronin had the rule, no gods, no masters. So my rule is simply no gods, no masters, no gurus. And that's right. This podcast isn't one of those. I know you've seen plenty of them. You've seen plenty of videos on YouTube, on TikTok, wherever. I mean, there's a never-ending supply of gurus. And I'm not saying there aren't smart people out there that you can learn stuff from, because there's plenty of smart people. I do plenty of research. That's part of being a Ronin, and we'll have to go over that in the future. You learn, you study from masters and you learn. But I am not a guru, and I do not know it all. I have sold some books, but I am not like a best-selling author. I'm not somebody who's sold 20 million books or whatever. I'm just a guy. I'm just a self-published author out here trying to do my thing. And so while I will share my experiences with you, I don't want you to think for an instant I'm a guru. I'm not one of those guys. So that's our rule. No gods, no masters, no gurus. This podcast is not a guru podcast. It's not a podcast trying to teach you a bunch of stuff. Do it my way and you'll be a big success. No, that's not this podcast. This podcast, what I want this podcast to do is to be a support group for authors. Because the path that we all walk is not easy. If you've chosen this path and you're a self-published author, you know it's not easy. You've put your books out and not sold copies. You've had times that you think, what's the point of this? And so I wanted to do this podcast as sort of a support group, and I wanted it to be for the good times, the bad times, all of it, all of it. I want to have a podcast where we can be real, where you guys can leave questions, you can leave comments, you can tell me about your path, and I can talk about it, and we can all talk about it, and we can have that conversation, because I think that's very important, because being an author, being a self-published author especially, can be a very lonely process. And so, it helps to have other people to talk to. So I'm doing this to talk to you guys, and hopefully you guys will talk back and we can have a conversation. That's sort of the purpose of this whole thing. That's the purpose of this podcast. It's to do the good times, share the good times, share the bad times, all of it, and learn from each other on this journey. Because that's how we're going to stay sane. That's how we're going to get better. We're going to learn off of each other. We're going to feed off of each other, and we're going to learn a better path, and hopefully it'll make your author journey easier. Hopefully it'll make my author journey easier. So so this is the purpose of this podcast, and that's the purpose of episode 1, is just as an introduction, and just to kind of tell you what we're going to do and what I plan on doing, and hopefully you guys all come along on the journey with me. Subscribe to the channel, that way you'll get notified. Like the video, hit the notification bell so that when we put out a new podcast, you'll know. And let's all go on this journey together and learn from each other. So I'll post another episode soon, but this is number 1 in the books, and you guys stay on your journey. Hit me up in the comments if you have any questions, and we'll talk soon.